Hello people of YouTube and welcome to the monthly review of May 2023. It was a fairly busy one, I'd say. Bit of travel, bit of local sightseeing, bit of filming out in nature, bit of motorcycling as well. All of that we will get to. There's a little area nearby that I discovered while motorcycling last year on one of my trying to explore as much gravel as possible type of rides. But when you drive onto this road, at some point you get to a fence with a menacing sign that says, "Driving on this road is only in agreement with the landowner because this road is private and don't you dare step on it." So being the unadventurous goose that I am, I never actually rode further on it. But this spring we decided to have an explore anyway. Not with any motorized vehicles, but just us and the dog. The first bit of the road that you are allowed to drive on goes past some farms, but then when you get to the gate, it turns into more of a wood cutting type area. So it's not entirely strange that you aren't supposed to drive there just for fun, because generally, aside from some cabins that we walk past, there isn't really any destination there as such. However, just as a path to hike, it is lovely. You end up by a little lake where we had some lunch together, and just generally, as with most of the places around here, it's a very pretty area. Also, I don't know if you've noticed something strange about the footage you've been watching, but this was shot on my iPhone because I had a backpack full of lunch stuff and a gas burner and what have you. Signa did not bring a backpack, but only had her dog training coat on. And I didn't have a camera with me, but wanted to film everything anyway, so I used my phone for once, which I'm saying for once, but I did a bit last month as well. Anyway, I've been leaning away from using my phone for any real filming because, I don't know, generally speaking, don't like the look of smartphone footage, but I think that with a bit of After Effects magic, can get it to look pretty decent. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you even notice it was smartphone footage? Should I have bothered buying a big expensive camera and swanky lenses? Or has it all been nonsensical money spending and should I just be filming everything on my phone because it looks perfectly fine? Anyway, let's get away from the having food by a lake section and go to the next bit, which is us having food by a lake.
I don't actually know what this place is called. We are on the other side of a road that we have usually walked from the other way.
There's this little lake fairly close to where we live called Hilvane, which is where we hike to pretty regularly. The road that goes past Hilvane ends up like 5-10 kilometers further down by another main road. So this time we drove around. Instead of going to Hilvane and entering the road on that side, we are on this side instead. What are we doing here?
Having dinner, and apparently working on Saga's need to chase every bird that she sees.
Yes, that too. What are we having for dinner?
We are having mashed potato and carbonade.
Do you want to describe to the people of YouTube what a carbonade is? In Dutch, a carbonade is a pork chop.
A pork chop?
Yes.
Huh. I don't know, it's like a meat patty with spices in it.
Is there anything else to talk about?
Pan.
We've got a pan. It's new. It's the first time I'm going to try it. It was a gift from Signa's mother. Don't know why, but she figured we needed a pan. And it was on sale. But it looks like a nice pan. It is from Jetboil, which is the same brand as the little gas stove we have to do all of this cooking on. So we're gonna try the combination of Jetboil pan on Jetboil burner.
What are we gonna do this month? I don't know. We've rented a cabin for the 17th of May.
That's a very good point. Yes, we've rented a cabin that we can basically see from our house, except it's on the other side of the fjord, so we've never actually been in that area. So I've got a couple of days off, and we're not really gonna partake in the national holiday festivities this year, I guess, because we'll be gone. So does the potato gunk just need to have hot water poured over it, or do you need to keep heating it when...
Boil 3 deciliters of water, then add 2.5 deciliters of cold water, and then put this in, and then stir, stir, stir. Let it... and then stir, stir, stir some more.
Last month, I brought up how my motorcycle is running very poorly and how I was very sad about this fact and that it was going to go in for service. Brought it in for service. It's still there 2 weeks later, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But while I brought it away for service, I got to test ride another motorcycle. The motorcycle I got to test ride is a Husqvarna Svartbilen 401. But before we actually get into that, I just want to point out that I am what the British would delightfully call a pillock. I'm gonna strap my GoPro to my chest, I'm gonna put a mic in my helmet and a mic in my backpack so that I can capture my real first-hand experience and the engine sound and blend it together in a pleasant audio-visual format. And then I didn't end up starting the audio recorder, so all we have is GoPro audio. And unfortunately, I wish I could say this was the only time I made an audio mishap during this month, but no, we'll see more of these same shenanigans later. Anyway, it was superb. During my whole ride, I was trying to find a specific word to describe this bike and the whole experience of it. I think the word I was looking for was dense. This motorcycle felt dense, tight, well put together, the chassis was nice and stiff, the handling was so planted I could hardly wrap my brain around it. Even though I don't necessarily want to own one myself because I want something that is slightly more long distance oriented, I would love to try it again, maybe rent one for a day or two to really experience it properly. And then it was the 17th of May, which is Norway's big national holiday, and this year we spent it by not celebrating it whatsoever, but escaping, essentially. I know you want to read, but before that, where are we?
Always with that question.
It's the most important question, and then it's always followed by, what are we doing here? But where are we?
It's a good question. Where are we? We are across the fjord from where we live, just outside a town called Vanvika, in a cabin that we rented on Airbnb because it's a long weekend in Norway because we have the 17th of May, which is our Constitution Day, and then the 18th of May is Kristi Himmelfart, which I don't know what that is in English.
Ascension Day.
Ascension Day. The sun coming in just as you said Ascension Day was kind of terrifying.
I'm ascending.
You are ascending. And then, yes, that's Wednesday and Thursday, and then we've taken Friday off to have a long weekend, like 99% of all of Norway, it seems. So we wanted to go somewhere and do something. But the weather is not supposed to be super great this weekend, so we thought we'd rent a cabin and go for walks when the weather is nice and sit here and read when the weather isn't. Potentially play some Tears of the Kingdom because it just came out and I have the Switch with me and I've played a lot of it so far. Yeah, it's very good.
You've basically taken away the need for me to ask the second question and have this be a nice conversational shot. Good.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I want to read my book.
You can now.
So I just did it quickly so that I can read my
smart.
book.
You may read your book.
Thank you.
If I look to my left here, I can actually roughly see where we stayed. It's about 20 kilometers as the crow flies, but it was an hour and a half to get there. I do love Norway, but the water and mountains do slightly hinder the infrastructure we have in this country sometimes. Anyway, that's a tangent I don't really need to go on. We did two really rather big hikes, and aside from that we stayed in the cabin, hung out, played Stardew Valley, at least I did. Signe played Zelda. Our first hike took us up a trail right behind our cabin, which if I remembered the distances rightly, it was about 2 kilometers to walk, 500 meters straight up. So, pretty steep. We were also a little bit surrounded by snow, which was quite fun. Weren't really prepared for that. And we ended up by what looked like a radar installation, military site type thing. Not entirely sure what it was, but there were big old radar dishes there. We had lunch, and then we looked on the map and saw that there was a loop we could walk instead of taking the same trail back down. This was a mistake. I didn't film any of the way down because it was basically a climbing path. It was very, very steep, very, very rocky, and with a very, very excitable dog who loves the birds that are everywhere right now and wants to run after them when she's not allowed off leash and basically attached to us at any given point. Very dangerous trek back down. But we made it, and even though it was very tiring, it felt nice and fulfilling once we were back at the cabin. Our second mountainous trek was done after we checked out of the Airbnb, after our third night's sleep there. This hike was also very steep, but the whole trek brought us slightly less high up, and the roads we took were a lot more accessible in the fact that they were actual roads and not just swampy trails. For this trek, we also decided just to take our sweet ass time. And once we got to the still weirdly frozen lake that we set out to get to, we had another lunch and then just laid in the sun for like 2.5 hours, which was absolutely delightful. So we had a lovely, very relaxing destination of our trip, and then we trekked back down, which took about 1.5 hours, drove back to the ferry, and then drove from the ferry back home. Another 1.5 hours of driving to cover 20 kilometers. We are just coming back from the last hike of our little 17th of May extended weekend. What was the highlight?
The highlight was to sit for 2 hours just back there, like we did like 10 minutes ago.
That was the highlight of the whole trip?
Yes.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Right, so what was in second place? What was fun, but not a highlight?
I think just hanging out at the cabin. It was a really nice place. It had a beautiful view. The weather was mostly really good. I got to read my book and play video games on my Switch. Just
completely
relax,
get out of the routine of normal day-to-day life.
Yeah, it was nice with a change of environment.
Yes, I agree.
Even though we read books and play video games and go for hikes at home, it's different to do it in a different place and hike different hikes and look at different views and eat tasty food because it's the weekend and we have all the time in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And now it is about 4 o'clock. We've got about an hour to hike down. We're at like 350 meters, I guess, above sea level. And we're parked near sea level, so we've got a bit of trundling to do.
A bit of trundling to do.
And that brings us to the next bit where I completely failed to record any audio. Look at this dum-dum in the passenger seat being delightfully unaware of his failures, talking about how there are so many tunnels on this road it's hard to film anything. Well, little did he know there were other factors hindering his filming abilities. Like a dead battery on the camera's audio receiver, for example. Anyway, what you are witnessing here is Signe and me driving to Averøya, which is near Kristiansund, about 3 to 4 hours away from where we live, near Trondheim. We went to Averøya the last weekend of May because Signe had a dog competition, specifically one of the rally obedience types, where you run around a track full of signs, and on each sign there is a command you have to have your dog do, and your dog needs to do them and not get distracted by whatever the hell is happening around it. The original plan was for me to join on my motorcycle, but my motorcycle was in service, so I couldn't join on my motorcycle, which in hindsight I was actually quite pleased about, because I would have shat myself if I'd had to ride through the storm that we had to endure basically all 3 days we were there. The weather certainly suited the environment we were staying in though, because Averøya is right on the Atlantic coast. So a bit of storm whipping up waves and blowing our hair about while we were on a walk, quite suitable. And while it wasn't the delightful sunny springtime weather we were hoping for late May, it was sort of enjoyable in its own strange way. Except of course for when we actually had to do the competition bits, which consisted of a lot of sitting outside, waiting for every participant to run the course and being rained on very much. To add insult to injury, Saga managed to get herself disqualified for the first day because she peed on one of the signs. The second day went a lot better though, and Saga and Signe together managed to finish the whole course, but there was something that felt a bit particularly cherry on top like about driving 4 hours only to be met by shite weather and then having the dog disqualify herself from even participating. All of that said, the drive itself was lovely, the campsite we stayed at was very nice. I would love to see more of the area, and if summertime does ever want to return to our part of Norway, I would definitely love to return and explore more. And with an exceptionally stormy weekend behind us, that brings us to the end of May 2023. People of YouTube, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to push some of the positive buttons down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!